Oh, here he is, just off camera. Jay's Fight Talk bragging about his latest flourishing fighter partnership. But we are live now anyway. We'll get into that later with myself and Jay. How's things, mate?
I'm good, man. You?
Good, mate. Good. Yeah, just a quick little review show. Obviously, a few decent fights this weekend. It wasn't quite better be a Bivol, was it? But we've got a couple of things to get stuck into. So obviously we'll continue that on Tuesday.
I mean, come on, we're going to be disappointed forever about it not being better be a Bivol.
Yeah,
that was
true.
an anomaly. I mean, we've had or AJ Dubois. You know, the past couple of months we've been spoiled. I think with a cluster of massive fights, not just here in the States, in Saudi, in the UK. Sort of the latter part of the year, the last quarter of the year seems to be. I mean, even in other fight disciplines, MMA, there's some massive fights coming up towards the end of the year. So I think it's still downhill in terms of boxing until we get to Christmas, really, isn't it now for Fury and Usyk?
Yeah, 1,000,000% it is, mate. Definitely. We got Cattrall and Taylor obviously to preview on this week's.
You keep saying that it's not Taylor. It's Cattrall.
Why do I keep saying Cattrall Taylor? Cattrall Proga, Joe. It's because they're so associated to each other.
They're a bit synonymous with each other,
Yeah.
Sort of. They both became more. They crossed over to the mainstream with that rivalry because it was bitter, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, that's about the 5th time this week I've said Cattrall Taylor.
We all know what you mean, brother. Don't worry about it.
And let's be honest, it's only just been getting towards fight week as well. It's not even really fight week. But anyway,
plenty more time to slip up.
Plenty more time to slip up, indeed. What we saw yesterday, we'll start with. Let's start with the best fight of the weekend, actually, in my opinion. Anyway, it's only lasted 3 rounds. So there's not that much to digest, but it was 3 rounds of absolute chaos. I was chatting to Liam, obviously, doing the watch along, and Tszyu and Murtazaliev. The first round, I'm sure you've watched it back anyway, but the first round, I could just tell that something like chaos was coming, and you probably saw yourself when you watched it back. There was both men just letting shots fire away in the first round, and I just knew I didn't anticipate that ending coming so abruptly. I didn't even anticipate it'd be Tszyu, the guy on the receiving end of it, but I knew something was coming because the first round you could have fought it in a phone box. It was that good a round, and when Murtazaliev just Tszyu's defense looked incredibly leaky. I'm sure you'll go on to say the same in a second, but non-existent exactly. But that counter left hook, the first knockdown of 4 eventual knockdowns, it was an absolute peach by Murtazaliev, and it's such a big underdog. That was a statement performance. He absolutely ran through Tszyu.
Murtazaliev was 7-1 with some bookmakers.
Insane.
7-1 against. Now, I think I said at some point this week, and I'm pretty sure people will let me know about it. We're getting trolled this week, but I think I said, Tszyu with the right fights and the right sort of progression could eclipse what his dad did. Out of all the kids who were talking about, Ben Eubank Jr. and I made a statement that looks pretty foolish now, but I'm not going to say he wasn't right last night, but some of his sort of fundamental parts of the discipline just weren't there for him last night. So the counter left up that put him down in the first round that you've just mentioned there, if you watch it back, it's not even that quick.
He timed him, didn't he? Timed him.
He's pretty sloppy with the way he brings his hands back, though. He sort of half-assed brings them to there, like he's never worried about what's coming back. And before you know it, bam, he's down he's on the canvas. And I don't think, he didn't recover from that. You could have stopped that fight in the first round. You could see that.
Yeah, we'll come on to the stoppage side of it in a little while, because that was, I've got my views on that as well. Big up Wayne Herman. Thanks for tuning in, my friend. Pablo B's with us as well. Thanks, Pablo. To watch Tszyu last night was painful, so overconfident, no game plan, no adjustments. You're right. And regular listener, Luca's with us. Top man Luca looked very conclusive. Where does Tszyu go now? Well, do you know what? My opinions on Tszyu, he hasn't gone down in my estimation. I'll tell you why. I know his promoters, his main event boxing, you call him. Not main event, no limit boxing. So main event's the channel in Australia that broadcasts the fights. But they maneuvered their way to this title shot essentially with Murtazaliev. It was worked out, and it was made for Tszyu to go and win last night. But He had a struggle against Sebastian Fundora, didn't he, earlier this year? So that's back-to-back defeats now. But many people around him, I believe, are telling him to take a tune-up and, go back, get on the horse. But he himself, I believe it directly came from him that he isn't interested in no tune-ups. He wants to be straight back in there because he's got full self-belief of what he can do. But on Luca's question, Jay, he can't be doing that again now, can he? He's going to have to rebuild now. It's two defeats in a row, and that was a crushing defeat last night.
Well, but yeah, I mean, it's, I'll play devil's advocate maybe and contradict myself as I always do, but the Fundora loss as such was heavily flipping. Look, it was the state of it. Once he got that cut, that fight was done for him. He couldn't see properly. It was causing him a lot of pain. So I don't really see that as. And look, Fundora is up there in that division as one of the best in that division. I'm picking him to beat Errol Spence, but we'll go on to that later. But last night was a devastating defeat. But I'm trying to take the positives from it. So
what a tough man, by the way, absolute heart of a lion.
Heart of a lion, and that's one of the reasons why he took that fight, because he's not scared and he's got I'm not saying anyone's scared, but he's got full self-belief in full self-confidence, self-belief. And he believes he can beat anyone, and you have to have that to be an elite athlete in any discipline, in any sport. But I think sometimes it can be a detriment, as it showed to be last night, because I don't think. Yes, I've said he were lazy in some of his defensive movement and stuff, and fundamentals were lacking, but I think he underestimated Murtazaliev's boxing ability, and I think a lot of people did, bookmakers, fans, promoters.
He hadn't fought anyone on Tszyu's level, really, Murtazaliev, so that was a breakout performance for him last night.
But again, Tszyu's level, Tszyu's been very well managed, and the right fights at the right time. He's not really fought any killers as such, has he? To that point, maybe his last 4 or 5, you could say, the levels have increased significantly.
Yeah. Do you think Virgil Ortiz would have destroyed him? Who's scheduled to fight Virgil Ortiz on the Crawford Madrimov card? Do you think Ortiz would have ran through him?
What happened to him last night? The same thing would have happened to him last night, because I feel that it's the wrong type of fights for him. They'd be better off staying over in Australia, trying to get champions to come to them, win the belts over there before he had a night like last night, because he should have had that for unification, or they could have built that properly. It was just sloppy. Whoever's let him take that fight, it's sloppy work. It should be managed better, to save him from himself.
Well, I heard he's moved out to fully base himself in America now, and he's 23-0 in Australia, 0-2 in America. Now Tszyu, his record stands. Liam was telling me last night that he's fully now based in Las Vegas, and he's moved his whole family out and that kind of thing. Murtazaliev, he's got a golden ticket now. It's him, Crawford.
Just announced himself to the world. Yeah, he's announced himself to the world.
Stick him in with Boachuk, stick him in with Madrimov, stick him in with Boots if he comes up. Virgil Ortiz against
Crawford. Well, we're all missing. What about Crawford?
I don't know if he has the namesake for Crawford. I don't think Crawford's interested in anyone that doesn't have a name. I've got a theory on what Crawford's going to do, and I announced it last night, and neither of you and Liam bit to it too much, but I wouldn't surprise me if he chased down William Skull. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. How'd you get a Canelo fight?
I don't think the Canelo fight's going to happen, if I'm honest. I've never been one for it. I just think it's.
Hey, got Pat. Silly. Hope you're well, my friend.
I'm all for champions challenging themselves, and maybe going up a division or down a division to sort of prove a point and be a unified champion. But I think stepping like that, it's just too much for me. And Canelo could splatter him in a couple of rounds because he's just so big. I don't think he will.
Canelo's not interested in it, is he? Let's be
really, because it's a risky fight for him as well. Amir Khan was boxing his head off until he got caught. I don't believe he'll catch Crawford like that. So it's a very risky fight for him. But it's risky for Crawford as well. I just think it's too much. There shouldn't be sanctioning stuff like that, really. Because that means then, in theory, that somebody at domestic level, a welterweight, could fight a super middleweight, stroke light heavyweight, and it gets sanctioned, and someone gets killed. Do you get what I'm saying? Because if they're gonna, you can't sanction it at one level and then say that it doesn't carry through, because you shouldn't be able to buy fights. I know they do, money talks, but for me, it's dangerous.
Pablo, I completely agree with you. I think that's a fair point. Tszyu, I believe, is going to fight Michael Zarafa. He's been recycled quite a bit. He's Aussie himself, obviously, but he's been in with a few guys over here and stuff like that before, hasn't he? But I believe that Tszyu was actually spoke to one of the Aussie media after the fight and said, I'm fighting Zarafa early next year. And someone in his team had to be like, look, you're taking a break. You're not fighting anyone for a while. Just calm down. He's a born fighter, Tszyu, man. He's an absolute warrior. He reminds me of a UFC fighter called, if no one watches the UFC in here, Alexander Volkanovski, who's also an Aussie. Just always wants to fight. And, when you're getting the Fundora fight, okay, that fight was different. Murtazaliev absolutely destroyed Tszyu last night. And what are your thoughts on the stoppage, first of all, Jay? I want your thoughts on, because I thought it was late. I thought the ref could have stepped in a few times. I thought his corner could have pulled him out after the second.
I didn't get the walk left, walk right, and then sending him back out. You could see
that was like Fury against Wilder. Do you remember Jack Reese doing that in Fury Wilder 1? Whenever Fury went down, he was like, run to the left, run to the right. Yeah. And
it's, for me, you can see when a man or woman is badly hurt. I mean, the second knockdown was heavy, and his legs weren't underneath him. He got him back underneath him from the first knockdown, but not fully. You could see that he never fully recovered from that first big punch that caught him. The stoppage, I think it should have been a little bit earlier. Luckily, it didn't take, it wasn't sort of flatlined, which would have been awful to see.
Yeah, he stopped on his feet in the end, wasn't he? The ref kind of stopped it and the corner towel came in.
Yeah, he took too many. The corner were up and ready to sling the towel, or did sling the towel just as the ref called it. But I think he were 5 or 10 seconds too late for me. That could have been a nasty one.
When a fighter's on the floor 3 times in one round, it's never good. And they were heavy knockdowns as well. The only fight that matters, DJ Pat says, is Beterbiev versus Canelo, if that can be made. Please make that. I would love to watch that. In fairness,
that doesn't matter. I'm not intrigued by that fight. Canelo's already proven that
Beterbiev would destroy Canelo. He'd knock him out.
Canelo's proven he is no good at 175. It's a reach too far for him. He's not big enough. And if he makes himself big enough, it hinders him because he's carrying too much weight. He's not fast enough. Canelo wins fights on speed, accuracy. If his speed is compromised, his accuracy is not there because his timing's different. But Beterbiev will smash Canelo to pieces at 175 pounds. You saw what Bivol did. Bivol pieced him up. If Bivol had been a harder puncher, he'd have stopped Canelo. I'm telling you now, he wouldn't. Beterbiev hits harder than Bivol. It's a bad move for Canelo. Bad move.
I think Canelo would have took it if Bivol won, because he's been in there with him before. I don't know if he'll take it if it's Beterbiev, but I'm hoping for, just as we finish Tszyu Murtazaliev, I'm hoping we see Murtazaliev get opportunities. I'm sure he will. He's got a world championship, for God's sake, but throw him in with Virgil Ortiz next for me. I would love to see that fight, because the way that, and credit to Tszyu as well, when he got hurt, he thought his tactics were horrendous, but from a fan point of view, he just wanted to stand there and trade, and it made for an absolute shootout for 3 rounds. It was brilliant, but Virgil Ortiz for me would have that kind of a fight with Murtazaliev. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't rule Murtazaliev out of that one either, although Ortiz will be a heavy favourite. Boachuk had Ortiz
I'd like to
on
see the Boachuk fight. I mean, Boachuk's got a fight, hasn't he? Madrimov. Maybe the winner of that. He deserves a big fight. He deserves an opportunity. He came in as the underdog. He came in as the blue corner. He came in as the opponent and flipped the script, tipped it on its head. Not just tipped it on its head, but, set it on fire, put it in an incinerator.
He waited for his opportunity for ages. PBC paid him 2 mil.
That is how you take an opportunity in sport. Certainly boxing is you come to the champion. I know he's from Australia, but you came to him as the opponent, and you put on the performance of your life. And I think he's a risk to any of the champions. I'm not saying that he could do that to any of the champions, but there's also a chance he could. He is obviously very, very, very hard for that weight division. And He deserves a massive fight. I'm intrigued to see who
he holds the cards now. He's got the he's IBF champ, so he holds the cards. People are going to need to chase him down to become a world champion. So he's in a great position. He's got big paydays coming with potential for Boots Ennis moving up the IBF 147. Virgil Ortiz. These are all big paydays for somebody like him, and I'm sure after what he did to Tim Tszyu, he'd have no fear in going into the ring with any of those guys. I wouldn't if I was him.
No. He'll be confident in himself now, won't he? And rightly so.
We'll keep an eye on what's next for those guys. We're not going to cover the whole undercard on here today because we'll do that on No Punches Pulled, but we'll definitely talk about the main event. Adam Azim, as we spoke about, Jay, on the watch along last night. Punch perfect from the 22-year-old. Absolutely punch perfect. He looked phenomenal in there. And we're going to have a little chat, and we've got 7 people with us at the minute. So please let me know about the Dalton Smith, Adam Azim debate. I want to get into that a little bit here. We'll further that on Tuesday, obviously. But first of all, Adam Azim, Jay, nailed Ohara Davies with the body shot. I think it was in 5 or 6. He won pretty much every round. And the OD wasn't himself in there, granted, but Adam Azim was absolutely on fire. Finished him with a left hook. OD's corner through the towel in, but he wasn't getting up, was he, from that? And the future looks incredibly bright. I'm not, not going to get too high on him, but, he looked good last night.
Yeah, but he just struggled to look bad. And I'm not going to be down on him, and I'm not being negative because I was praising him highly.
This is why the people tune in for Jay's Fight Talk. He keeps me in check whenever I start getting excited.
No. You've every right to get excited because he's obviously a world-class talent. But I was very disappointed in Ohara Davies. He never turned up with the intention to win, and everything he said after post-fight solidifies that for me. He never turned up. He was defensive, negative. He was pally. He wanted to shake. Azim, at one point, Azim blanked him because he wanted to touch gloves, shake his hand. It was a glorified sparring session, handing over the torch to his friend. Right? That Nando's.
One guy was there to win. One guy was there to get paid.
That's as simple as that. So Adam Azim would have struggled to look bad last night. I'm not saying Ohara Davies didn't have a little bit of a go. He threw some punches back. But he knew that he was going to be outgunned. He knew he was going to be outfought. He was second in terms of speed. And Adam Azim did everything he needed to do. He looked calm under pressure. He found fantastic angles off his footwork. His footwork's really clever, really quick. His hand speed is blistering. He took a few shots as well. Very, very few, though. But the ones he did take, he ticked every box for me last night. And he got the stoppage, and he called out Dalton Smith, if you can call it a call out. But he basically said, "I'm ready when you are. If the fight's willing to be made, if the fight's there to be made, I'll take that fight next." He pretty much said. So yeah, a lot of plus points for him, but I were really disappointed in Ohara Davies.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Definitely. Pat said that after Karen Boots will move up to 154. If he does, that's another huge name in that division. Pat, I look forward to seeing Jaron Ennis performing at 154 if he gets through Karen in a couple of weeks' time. Pablo B said, I love Adam Azim's work. Patience last night. He was never desperate. Yeah, exactly. Never rushed it, did he? Everything was, like we said, Jay called this nicely last night. Methodical, nothing. He didn't waste one punch in there last night. Everything he did was with intent. It was well thought out. He didn't smother himself, didn't rush himself. It was a performance of an experienced fighter, not a 22-year-old who's only had his 12th fight. I think that was last night or something.
Yeah, it was a mature performance. Very maturing. I like it. Because a lot of times when you see people with blistering hand speed, let's say Amir Khan, for example. Amir Khan was very, very rarely patient in his approach. It was always attack after attack after attack, just wave after wave after wave. Azim last night was finding the space in the range with his feet quick and then taking his time with his punch selection. So as you said, he didn't wasted barely anything. There were no punches that weren't meant to be on target, and he was conserving his energy, so he was throwing at maybe 50-60%. But yeah, his boxing's beautiful to watch. Really nice to watch the way he goes through the gears as well. He went through the gears last night.
He did exactly. He broke him down. He broke him down methodically over a period of time. It wasn't like it was a systematic beating.
And he didn't exert himself.
Yeah,
he didn't exert
touched his
himself
nose up, didn't
with,
he? Early, OD's nose was gone,
and knew what he were doing. And as you said, alluded to earlier on, he's 22. It was a real, mature performance. Targeting the body early on, then moving away from it, going to the head, busting his nose up. I think he busted his jaw as well. He had a sort of a swelling on the, I forget which side, but he had swelling on his jaw and his nose was badly bust. You could tell afterwards because he was talking very nasally. Was Ohara Davies.
Yeah, he was actually. Yeah, you're right.
Then targeted the body again, stopped him to the body, then went back to the head, and I think it was a left hook to the head that finished. It sort of buzzed Ohara, went down, and he knew straight away he wasn't getting up. All his body language told me he's not getting up, and he sort of, I don't want to use the word quit, but he gave in, didn't he? And he'd had enough. Let's say he knew he was never going to win, and he'd have got hurt if he'd have carried on. He'd have got knocked out. So it was good performance, man.
We said it all week about OD. He's so unpredictable. We saw his body language all week. We all said that it didn't look great. And you can't trust Ohara Davies for what he is. And that's why I said it was smart by Ben Shalom when he said to Azim that, look, just because he's looking like that, believe me, he's trained hard. And he looked in good shape. He made the weight and everything like that. So, he clearly trained
himself,
hard.
Sam. He said it himself. That his mindset's all wrong. He said that he's too nice for it now. He's calmed down. He said, so that's not the right
exactly.
So
he looked nice in there last night. Azim was spiteful.
He said
everything he was
said
doing.
it in the post-fight interview. He said, look, the OD that's around today, the way I am in my life, he said, I haven't got that killer instinct. And he showed that last, especially not against a friend. He was never going to do any damage going into it with that kind of mindset, especially not with somebody that he considers a friend. So it was all wrong. I'm not going to say he's conned the public, but he's done for Ohara last night. That fight for Ohara, that fight performance by Ohara Davies last night was for nobody but himself. And I know they fight for themselves, the fighters, but they also want to entertain the fans to a degree. So they'll
he doesn't care about that.
He didn't give a shit. He didn't give a shit. So good luck to him. I hope it is a retirement because I didn't see him come back and get used as cannon fodder for somebody else as another name. I think, Azim's got the rub of him last night. I wouldn't like to see that happen again. So I hope they don't offer him big money to come out, to Saudi and get bashed in by a young prospect.
Yeah. Good thing for him. I don't think he's a big enough name to really warrant too much money going his way for a big Saudi fighter or anything. So I think he'll probably be happily.
No, but the money nowadays for Saudis is small, but over here, I mean, look, they're taking Dave Allen out to fight Johnny Fisher, for God's sake. Dave Allen's not a household name, really. He was well known, about 5 years ago, but he's
knocked out Lucas Brown at the O2.
Yeah, that's the highlight of his career, isn't it?
It is. Lucas does agree, lads. Took his time, went through new gears, really impressed. Yeah, definitely. Before we move on, Adam Azim, Dalton Smith. Do you believe it happens in 2025? And if so, what's your initial thoughts around things? Because just before you answer me, Adam Azim was the most vocal he's ever been about Dalton Smith last night. Obviously, he probably had a very high adrenaline rush after what happened, but he kind of backed his promoter as well, Ben Shalom, a little bit. I don't know if you heard what he said about. He goes, "You've been saying stuff about me. You've been saying stuff about my promoter as well. Kind of backing your mate Ben Shalom as well."
Yeah, he sounded pissed off. Sounded like he was sick of reading and hearing stuff about what he apparently felt.
I liked it out of him. I liked it.
What he'd done, what he'd said, what Ben had said. The way it were messy, really, wasn't it, how the fight didn't happen. The way that they made us think it were going to happen.
Yeah,
I'm not saying they did that on purpose, doing the face-off. And
it was never going to happen, was it?
Face-off.
Yeah.
No. But I think he's ready now. I think they didn't want to take the fight. Very similar to Wardley and Clark. That took some time to get put together, didn't it? And the reason they did that is they didn't think Fraser were ready at the time. And judging by the performance in the first fight, he wasn't. Because I don't believe that fight would have been as close if he'd have took it when they originally wanted to take it. What happened in the second fight would have probably happened in the first fight. But luckily for Fraser, he got a nice payday in the first, nice payday in the second. But, the better man won ultimately on the night. And I think they thought something very similar. And I think last night they were testing themselves to see how Azim performs against somebody that's boxed at a higher level, somebody that's a little bit older. I think that was more of a test. So I think the comments are off the back of the performance. I think Azim also now feels maybe more confident in winning that fight because he hasn't been vocal about it all, really, has he? Up until
they've barely spoke about it, really. They haven't at all. Ben Shalom's spoken it when he's been asked, but the whole team, McGuigan and Azim, they've been fairly radio silent. But like you say, I think that's a great point. His confidence now, because he beat Ohara that
going
way.
Back to your original question, is I think it will happen, but I think it's going to be second or third quarter of next year. I don't think because I think is it the Vasquez fight for Dalton Smith? Who's
he's fighting John Fernandez for the European.
Sorry, I think that fight will happen. I think
Monaco
Adam may have
allegedly.
Yeah, I think Adam may have one in February, March, maybe, and then they'll make it maybe summer somewhere, either on another big card or it might get its own headline. Maybe the 5 versus 5. Maybe that's these two are the captains.
Well, they did a matchroom box of 5 versus 5. Do you know what's got an outside chance of the card landing on, depending on how Dalton goes on December the 14th? Do you know what I'm going to say?
Go on.
Do you know this February 22nd Riyadh card that's going to be the best Riyadh season card ever? Just like December the 21st and October the 12th and September the 21st.
That's the headline. But yeah, I saw
August the 3rd. No, not the headline, but it wouldn't surprise me if that one ended up on a Saudi card. Dalton and Azim.
It's a big enough fight for that, and it's a decent date. It gives Dalton Smith 10 weeks.
Jack, how you are, mate?
Yes, Jack. It gives Dalton Smith 10 weeks or so. It gives Adam Azim, a little bit longer. That's a good shout, mate. Very good shout.
It just depends if Dalton A wins or B gets a cut or takes any damage in that one. But yeah, it's we have to see it, don't we? For me, I'm a lot more excited about the possibility of that fight after what happened last night. We'll quickly have a little gloss over Mr. Yard, Lions in the camp, but it wasn't quite. Well, it was the first punch he landed was Lions in the camp, wasn't it? But what was he after that?
Lions fell asleep, mate. I think I nearly fell asleep, didn't I? Anthony Yard doing what Anthony Yard does. Whacking people until they fall over, and if they don't fall over, he struggles. He's not the best boxer. Anthony Yard can have a scrap. He can fight. He hits really hard. He's athletic. He's strong. He's fast. In terms of boxing fundamentals, I'll use that word again, they're shocking. They're just not good enough. He had that guy at 6s and 7s within 10 seconds of the opening bell, right? And he did not know how to finish him. He only finishes guys when they're flailing all over and he gets like pot shots on them, but he don't know how to create space. And, why would he not pulling his hands down and hooking him to the body and then
getting nailed with that uppercut, wasn't he? That uppercut was there all night for Vilkins.
There's no way, right? He might have wanted rounds, right? He might have wanted rounds. I'm not saying he didn't want rounds.
There's no way he wanted to take 30 uppercuts straight down the pipe.
Absolutely,
that wasn't in the game plan.
Was red raw straight after that fight. He got smacked all over. If that had been a 12-round, it was a 10-round fight. That wasn't it? If that had been a 12-round fight. That could have got really precarious towards the end because he was starting to lose rounds, taking way too many shots, struggling. I'm underwhelmed by it, and I'm not asked whether I see the Boazzi fight or not now because I think I know what's going to happen in it.
Well, that's the next logical step, isn't it? There wasn't too much noise about it. Afterwards, there was a bit of noise about it, but there weren't.
I mean, he was supposed to go out there, smash this guy to bits, lean over and say, "You next, let's get it on." But he didn't, did he? He laboured to a win, and then sort of did the Lions in the camp, touching fists and nonsense. You're not as good as that with your Adidas sponsorship. It's all about money, I get that, but he's flattered to deceive. He's very much like Chris Eubank Jr. Talks a wicked game, but he can fight, but he can't box. There's no way he beats Joshua Boazzi for me unless he catches him and knocks him out. And Boazzi takes a good shot.
You saw what Boazzi would do. Would he beat Willie Hutchinson, Anthony Yard?
Don't think so. Not on last night's performance.
I think it'd be a close fight.
on last night's performance, I would make Willie Hutchinson a 60-40 favourite against Yard based on last night's performance. So I don't think he's cute enough with his punch selection to be able to catch Willie Hutchinson where Buatsi caught him and his solar plexus and his liver and stuff. I just don't think he's really basic in the way he throws punches. There's no to him.
He doesn't set shots up like Buatsi does. Buatsi's a sniper.
You can see what's coming.
Buatsi.
You can see what's coming, and they just tuck up, and eventually he catches them.
That's amateur pedigree for you. That's an Olympic medalist versus somebody who's had a handful of amateur fights.
Yeah, I have not seen any progression in Anthony Yard's style from turning over to where he is now.
The issue lies within Jay. We speak about it all the time with Yard. Yes, he's fought Kovalev and Beterbiev and been close in both fights. In fairness, put up great performances.
That's his claim to fame.
That is his claim to fame. Ultimately, he got knocked out in both fights. Champion. Yeah, he got knocked out in both fights, and the only other two meaningful fights he's been in are against Lyndon Arthur, who, let's be honest, like Lyndon's a good fighter, he is, but he's European level.
And he got stopped. He got stopped in first one, didn't he?
No, Lyndon beat him on points.
Lyndon in the second. Sorry,
he stopped Lyndon in the second. Yeah, but let's be honest. In the first fight, did Lyndon not have a torn shoulder and he beat him with one arm with a jab or something?
Beat him with one arm, yeah.
He just jabbed him.
Yeah, Anthony Yard's domestic level. And if he gets the Buatsi fight, he's a lucky boy, because Buatsi didn't look like he really were bothered about fighting him last night. He didn't, because they say it's a big fight. Is it a big fight anymore, that? Really?
You know what? They're both London lads, aren't they, and stuff like that. So, like, I imagine
London. It's a big fight.
Big fight in London, yeah. Yeah,
not a big fight.
You couldn't put it on pay-per-view or anything like that. It's not that big.
I'm telling you now, if you put that fight on in Manchester or Liverpool, unless you stacked out the undercard, you are not selling out that arena.
It stinks of a non-profitable show for boxer, that does, Because both men will be after heavily inflated purses. They'll both be after an absolute fortune for having that fight. And, Bennett...
It's going to cost them $1 million.
I'd say they'll try and put that box office. Huh?
It'll cost them $1 million to put that fight on. That fight can't be the main event. It'll cost
I'd say they'll try and put that on box office with a stacked undercard, I bet you. Bet you they'll try and pay-per-view that fight.
Yeah. Maybe someone like, I don't know, Caroline Dubois in a world title fight. Tasha Jonas, if she's still with Boxer.
That's a great point, that, Pablo. Yard's mastered the art of looking good against elite fighters and looking bad against B-class fighters. That's actually such a good point.
Doing that. It's a good skill to have.
But then that begs the question: they shouldn't be fighting all these B-level fighters all the time. You clearly perform better when the opposition's better in front of you. So you don't need to take 3 tune-up fights since Beterbiev. That was his 3rd tune-up fight since he lost to Artur Beterbiev last night.
How many fights has he had in total? 28 or something like that.
Yeah, he's I'll get the exact figure.
That's his 25th tune-up fight, if we're honest. He's fought more TBAs than I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. His total amount of fights that was his 29th last night.
Yeah.
And four of them have been against Beterbiev, Kovalev, and Lyndon Arthur.
And the rest have been against
the rest of them I'd struggle to name you. Struggled to name you one other person. I couldn't name you one other person that he's been in the ring with.
Has he boxed Boris Crichton? Is Boris Crichton on there?
I'm not sure.
If he's not, then...
But anyway, it begs the question, no wonder when he's stepping up to the levels, he's not winning. Because, he's putting up a good fight, but he's not winning. And it's about winning.
I don't think he wins a British title. I don't think he's good enough to win a British... I mean, he might... Yeah, I'm probably being a little bit dismissive of his skill set there, but he hasn't won a British, has he? He's won a Commonwealth.
I don't think he's won a British, to be honest with you. I don't know if he's fought for it, has he?
I think the two that fought for the British title last night, Edmondson and Aziz, both would have beat him last night on last night's performance. And Aziz
beat Lyndon for the Commonwealth, you're right. Yeah.
I'm disappointed with Anthony Yard. I don't know why he don't want to test himself. He should get out of a gym where they're all clapping and hooping and hollering, and there's 10 of them stood round him like he's Mayweather when he's on the bag, screaming lions in the camp. He should be part of a group in a gym where he's not the big dog, right? Humble himself, go learn something different and have a good run at it, aren't they? Because doing what you're doing, I promise you now, kid, you will not win a world title. He won't.
He's on the clock as well. He's on the clock. He's not 25 years old. He's 33.
No,
he's got a couple of years left.
I mean, who am I? He's probably got a lot of money in bank. He's got his diamonds and he's got his sponsorship, and that's what it's all about ultimately. But if he's about legacy, right? You don't want to retire being your claim to fame is getting bashed in by 2 world champions, going out on your shield. That's not a badge of honor. That's not a badge of honor. You're supposed to evolve. Yeah,
it's the highlight of his career is taking Beterbiev to deep waters. So far,
getting bashed in by world champions. That's not what I'd want to be remembered for. But listen, no one's going to remember me. They'll remember him still. He's doing more than I ever could. I'm not discrediting and dismissing it, but I'm just saying that I think he could do a lot better than he's done. And I think there's still time, but I just don't see an evolution of him. I don't see an improvement fight on fight. I don't see any improvement. I just think Buatsi will bash him in if it does happen. But I'm not sure after last night. How are you?
It looks that way for sure, mate. Definitely. Just quickly then before we wrap up, obviously we'll go much deeper on these fights on Tuesday and no punches pulled. But William Skull fought Vladimir Shiskin. I think it's over in Germany actually for that vacant IBF super middleweight championship. That, let's be honest, Caleb Plant's probably going to fight for it, or Canelo again for the undisputed in this Japanese card that has been spoke about. I don't know if you caught any of the fight, mate, but Skull got the decision. He was badly hurt in the 12th, but what do you think the next move will be? Yeah,
he was clinging on at one stage.
He was,
it was. It's not, the fight was nothing to write home about, really, was it? There's nothing.
I only watched the highlights, if I'm being honest, because all I saw on X last night was how bad the fight was.
Yeah, there's nothing there that would worry any of the. I mean, Caleb Plant will be licking his lips at that. Put me in, coach. Caleb Plant will smash him to pieces, I think. I think it'll be a short reign as the IBF super middleweight champion. I think it'll be a short reign for him. I just don't see him beating any of the top super middleweights out there. Do you?
No chance. Absolutely no chance. Neither of them would have.
Didn't even think about it, did you?
No. It just wasn't a possibility before the fight. It's definitely not a possibility after the fight. It was a lottery ticket winning fight. You may as well have played the Euro Millions. The winner of it's going to get a huge payday. Their belt's going to be bought by probably PBC, let's be honest, for Caleb Plant.
Can they afford it?
Well, that's the other side of it. Maybe not. Or just be Canelo's tune-up in Japan before he fights someone big at Cinco de Mayo. I say someone big, it'll probably be Chris Eubank Jr., won't it? Cinco de Mayo next year for Canelo. I think that, because the way Ben Shalom's talking, I think that's almost penciled in or something like that. He always refers, whenever he's asked about the Conor Benn fight for Eubank, he always diverts back to Cinco de Mayo, Canelo. You watch any interview that Ben Shalom's been asked about Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn, he always just goes, the one I want's the Canelo fight. He always talks about Canelo. So I'm convinced there's something in that, or it's done.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of that fight, but, who are we? It is what it is. They'll probably make it, but yeah. I'd like to see Caleb Plant.
Do you know why Junior wants that fight? It's because he can lose to Canelo and still fight Ben and make a load of money, but you can't lose to Ben and fight Canelo. So it's business. It makes business sense from a Chris Eubank Jr. point of view, and Ben, especially a Ben Shalom point of view, to push that Canelo fight, Cinco de Mayo.
Right move.
Shocking fight for Canelo, though. He needs a big. He's due one now, because he went from Caleb Plant to Bivol, and then it's been pretty lackluster since then, and the fans are on his back. The media are on his back. He needs a big name in Cinco de Mayo next year. I don't care who he fights, really. If he's going to fight on this new age,
it's got to be a name on it. It's got to be a name.
Yeah, he won't fight a name in Japan. If he's fighting in Japan, he'll fight. It might be Skull, or he's not going to fight anyone with a name there. But Cinco de Mayo next year, there's pressure on big time, man. He needs to fight somebody that has note, because
bye-bye.
Definitely. No, Canelo will not fight Eubank Jr. Can bet on them. Canelo will have a fight to take on, but my take is that Canelo will fight into the Matchroom in the Pat, he would fight for Matchroom any given day of the week if they were paying him what PBC would pay him, but it doesn't make business sense for Eddie, and Eddie won't pay. Eddie doesn't need to pay Canelo anymore because he's getting so much money from Riyadh season.
He's out with the Canelo. Eddie's out with the Canelo business. He's not interested. He's got no fighters that are going to fight him, so I don't think he's bothered about.
He doesn't need the profile anymore because he's got a solid stable of US fighters in Bam and Boots Ennis, and he's got Mexican fighters and whatever it is. He doesn't need to overpay for Canelo anymore because all his top fighters are being shoehorned into Riyadh cards anyway. Even probably the American ones are going to be. I'd say Boots will be on Riyadh cards before. He signed Shakur Stevenson for God's sake now, hasn't he? He's with Eddie now, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he put out a thing yesterday, Stevenson, saying that he's had successful hand surgery and he's back in the gym and roll on February or something. So you can bank on him fighting on that February 22nd card, and I guarantee you it's not Joe Cordina.
Absolutely not. I don't think we'll see Joe Cordina fight for Matchroom again.
Yeah, but I don't know who Shakur could fight. Could be Devin Haney. Who knows?
I don't think that fight's going to happen. No, I think Devin Haney will fight someone like, don't know, but I don't think it'll be the next fight.
Haney will take a tune up and then he'll do the Garcia rematch probably. Canelo fights twice every year. Is not more. PBC does not pay Canelo. Canelo's paying PBC. All right, yeah, I know what you mean, Pat. Yeah, but I don't know if Canelo's profitable. Big up Håkan. Hope you're well, my friend. Having a good Sunday over in Sweden. I don't know what the deal is with PBC and Canelo, but he forgive me if I'm wrong, Jay, he takes a guarantee, does he not, for every fight, like 35 odd million?
Something stupid like that, yeah.
So like the pay-per-view and the rumor with the Edgar Berlanga pay-per-view, was it not like it did 600,000 buys, was it, or something like that, which is an astronomical figure, really? But was that ever verified?
I don't think I've ever seen an official verified number. Normally takes months to come out, really, doesn't it? The real number, but it
was definitely spoken about that it did 650,000 pay-per-view buys, and it went up against the UFC in the same city that night. So if it was allegedly a sellout as well. So if that was the case, and just look at the scenes at the weigh-in that day before, it was packed to the rafters. So it wouldn't surprise me if that happened. So Canelo's
a draw. Canelo's a draw. It'll be a draw till the day he retires. It's like Julio Cesar Chavez. The Mexicans love him. He's their main boy. So it'll always do good numbers. I don't know. 600,000 does seem extreme, but I'm happy to be proven wrong.
Definitely. Pat said that still PBC does not live long with Canelo paying them money. Canelo does own promotion deals. Also, he's the one to make PBC. Yeah, PBC. If Canelo and PBC is no more, in my opinion, PBC will cease to exist in the not too distant future. I agree with you on that, Pat. I don't think. Put it this way, and just we're going to wrap up very shortly. Put it this way: PBC put on that card last night. That's their first non-pay-per-view card, I think, in quite a while. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I think that's true. Everything else seems to be pay-per-view. They're doing David Benavidez against David Morrell. I think that's going to be in January. They've got Benavidez, Tank, and Canelo. You can't really. He is fighting for PBC cards, but he's not. Canelo will just sign whoever 3-fight deals with whoever's going to pay him the most money. Tank and Benavidez are their two guys. Is Benavidez that big a draw? I don't think so. Is Tank that big a draw? He is a draw. Don't get me wrong, but Ryan Garcia massively inflated his numbers.
Yeah, don't get it twisted about Tank. He's not a massive. Stick him in against a no-name and you're not doing 100,000 pay-per-views. I'm telling you now, you're not.
Well, the Frank Martin fight, did that not do a massive lack of pay-per-views?
I think it did 100 and something. I don't think
it did. Yeah, and it did like over a mil with Ryan Garcia.
Yeah. But a lot of that's Ryan Garcia's 8 million followers on whatever social media platform it is. He's a massive star, isn't he? So, you can attribute that to him. Tank's a star in boxing. He's not crossed over to the mainstream yet for me.
That's the difference, 100%, and he hasn't. So like, I just don't see. I love Caleb Plant, and he's a wonderful fighter, but he's not a star. Matchroom have stars, Queensbury have stars, Top Rank have stars. Even Golden Boy, Golden Boy have a few stars. They don't have huge massive name, but Ryan Garcia is a star. He's a star of the sport. No matter what he's done or what you can say, he's going to sell pay-per-views. PBC outside of Canelo Alvarez right now, yes, Tank Davis is there. He's the flag bearer for him, if you want to call it that right now. But David Benavidez is just not that guy. And if Canelo goes, as Pat says on here, PBC for me, I just don't think. And exactly, and the issue they're having, Jane, Turkey and Riyadh season are responsible for this. And I'll ask you a final question. I'll ask you a final question before we go. Sorry, Jay. PBC's pay-per-views, how they are able to pay Canelo, how they're able to pay, Tank and David Benavidez, it's because they charge $70 to $80 per pay-per-view in the US market. Better be Evan Bivol. I know the main event was free to air in the US, but the undercard was pay-per-view. It was $19.99. And then further pay-per-views in the US, Turkey's going to come in with that price bracket. It's essentially probably to try and drive PBC out of the sport. Now, what do you think on that? Is it going to be bad for the sport if PBC do go? Or how do you think it affects the sport overall?
Well, you've got to remember that PBC came in and disrupted the market. That's what they did. They had a load of money. They had a big backer. They came and
they were doing it all free to air, weren't they? At first, PBC.
They were at first, and they bought out everybody's contracts and they tried to hurt Golden Boy and all the other Top Rank, and they put the final nail in HBO's coffin. Because a lot of the fighters were getting bought out of contracts and going to PBC. So it's on them. I don't think it's a bad thing. PBC barely put fights on anyway, don't they? And it's not as though their stars are not going to be able to fight. They'll just get swallowed up by other promoters. It might be better for the sport. The fights will get made because PBC are hard to deal with. They don't like putting PBC fighters on with anybody that's not a PBC fighter. So it probably opens the avenues for bigger fights down the way there.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Pat said Tango Benavidez do no money in PBC gates. That is a fact. Canelo's the only one who make them live. We're not surprised if Turkey bought them out soon. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Turkey bought them out at all. It wouldn't surprise me if Mr. Dana White went in to buy them out as well at some point. Would not surprise me in the slightest. There you go. Canelo's last pay-per-view, PBC Prime was $90. If there's other fights,
I'm not paying that kind of money. No chance.
I'm sorry, but I don't know what the cost of living is in the United States at the moment. But you're talking
that's 70 quid.
It's a week's worth of food for some people.
70 quid, man. That's 3 times more expensive than our average pay-per-view. What was AJ and Thingy?
AJ DeBall, $19.99, wasn't it, or something? Better be Evan Bivol was less than that, wasn't it?
I think that was $19.99. I don't know anyway. They're about 20-25 quid over here, aren't they? And I think that's expensive.
It is, but if you're an American citizen,
25 quid.
You can justify it. If you're a US citizen, though, and you've got Better Be Evan Bivol's card on for $19, but then Canelo's fights on for nearly 5 times the cost of that. I'm going. I'll sit there and I'll just watch the Riyadh. I'll pay for the Riyadh season cards. Why would I pay 5 times the price? And the Canelo card wasn't even great either. It was Danny Garcia against Erislandy Lara, for God's sake.
It was 4 one-sided fights and 2 shit fights, and then the main event.
Yeah, definitely. Read this comment from Pat, then we'll wrap it up. We want to keep some stuff for No Punches Pulled on Tuesday. And they have a deal with 360 Promotions somehow, so PBC he has nothing in with, but who knows? But may take his turkeys. Will buy PBC. What do you think, Jay?
Not to buy. Just put them out of business. There's not to buy. What's he buying? 4 or 5 contracts and a bit of branding. Just swallow them up. He'll just put them out of business. Al Heyman will pull out soon. He's not making any money, and ultimately, he's spent a lot.
It's just classic, isn't it? It's classic. Turkey doesn't need the profitability right now. We all know that the Crawford Madrimov card was a massive flop, done 100,000 pay-per-view buys or whatever, but it means nothing to Turkey that they've got all the money in the world, whereas Al Heyman needs pay-per-view buys. They need to have successful shows. So Turkey,
different business model.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you on that. He doesn't need to potentially even buy them out. He can just keep putting on Riyadh season cards with big US fighters like Shakur Stevenson probably in February, and do that at a price point of $19.99. And then you've got David Benavidez is probably going to fight David Morrell on pay-per-view 2 or 3 weeks before that. And that the cost of that pay-per-view, in order for PBC to pay the overinflated purses that they're going to have to pay to get the fight on, is going to be $60, $70, $80. And fans are going to look at it. Fans are going to look at it and see AJ Dubois too, probably on that February card. They're going to see Shakur Stevenson. They're going to see a huge card in Riyadh for what, a third of the cost. You know, do the math. Turkey doesn't really need to drive them out of business. It's naturally just gonna happen, isn't it?
It'll just happen if he carries on doing what his business model is at the moment. And they complain about piracy and people illegally streaming, but if they made it more accessible to everybody, more people would purchase the pay-per-views. I'm a boxing fan, right? A massive fan. I barely miss fights. I'm not paying 70 quid to watch. It'd have to be a super fight for me to even consider spending 70 quid on a fight, because that's a lot of money to anybody, whether you've got money or haven't got money.
The cheapest ticket in the arena is probably exactly the cheapest ticket in the arena is less than the pay-per-view.
Yeah, you could probably get a nosebleed for $50, $60.
Yeah, you probably get a nosebleed for $60, $70 probably. That's not right. Why is it cheaper to be in the arena than it is to watch?
But we've got to also remember that these people that ultimately are making these decisions are not working class people. They're just business people, and they're working at the high end of business, doing $1 million contracts. So $70 is $89 or whatever it is not a lot of money. They can be flippant about amounts like that, but I wouldn't spend $89 or 70 pounds sterling on anything flippantly, would you? There's nothing I would
not in today's market. People don't have that money to. People don't have no wonder the business model's drying up and the pay-per-view buys are down. And if you're going to do that, I don't care if it's Canelo versus Berlanga. You have to put a better undercard on than Danny Garcia versus Erislandy Lara and Caleb Plant versus Trevor McCombie, without being disrespectful to any of the fighters.
They were good fights, but it's not making me to.
Yeah, but you look at some of the Riyadh undercards, and I know it's Riyadh season and it's different, but that's what they're a competitor of yours. You're competing against. That's the other side of the market that are putting on fights.
Putting on twice the quality for a third of the price. That's the problem.
Do the math.
They don't need to buy them out. They do not need to buy them out. They'll buy themselves out by running out of cash, running out of fights.
And then you're going to have all these big fighters on the market, which is going to be incredibly interesting as well. Yeah. About, no doubt some of them will set up their own promotional companies, and, Floyd will be back working with Tank and so on and so forth. But just last one, Hawk, can I pay a lot for ringside seats, but never pay more than 25
for a man. You're talking 500 quid for a seat of boxing, but I'm not spending. I've done it. I've told you. Tell you what I'll do on MPP this week. I've got a little tin where I keep some of my stubs, and I went through it before, and she can't hear me, can she? But let's just say I'd spent over 15 grand on boxing tickets for me and my lad over the years, and that's just watching like domestic fights over here, like Crawler and John Murray and Tyson Fury, that kind of thing. It's a deposit on a house, for God's sake. I had to 25 quid is my max for a pay-per-view, and it's got.
I'm sure there's some Americans that have spent 15 grand on pay-per-views over the years.
At those prices, they have, yeah.
I know. Most definitely, but no, we'll make sure you bring that on Tuesday, and we'll have a little laugh on there.
You can laugh
at Jay's wallet's disposal. But no, we'll leave it there for now, guys. Overran as always, but a great show as always. Massive thanks, obviously, to Jay's Fight Talk for joining me, and Horkan, Pablo, DJ Pat, Absolute Boxing, Luca. And I think that's it for now. Pablo, if I didn't mention you, apologies, Pablo, as well. We'll be back on Tuesday for No Punches Pulled, the 10th episode already, which is hard to believe, but we'll be back obviously previewing Cattrall against Prograis. I keep calling it Cattrall against Taylor, but I got it right. It's Cattrall against Prograis.
He'll do it again before before Saturday night. But
I
thanks for
will.
joining us, people.
Thanks, Pat, for joining us. Have a good rest of your Sunday evening, Hawkeye as well. £290 for Sonny and Galab. Wow, we'll cover it all this week.
$250 a ringside VIP. It's $250 minimum. That's what you pay. Yeah, it's a lot of money, man.
Big up, Pablo. Appreciate your kind words down there as well. Massively.
Thank you,
and we'll see you guys on Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. for No Punches Pulled. Have a good one.